Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for tuning in to another video here at the Aquarium Project. I really appreciate the support that we've been getting, and I'd just like to say thank you all very much. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment down below and all that good stuff. But aside from that, let's get into the video, eh? So for today's episode, I was wanting to talk about something that I think is really important that we don't really think about a lot as hobbyists, and that is the role that flow plays in an aquarium. I think, in my opinion, for most tanks, flow is like the most underrated form of like filtration that exists. To start this conversation, I want to make the point that this is not for every tank. This is not going to be suitable for every aquarium. I'm just talking about for the most part. African cichlids, American cichlids, keeping rainbow fish, keeping barbs, that kind of thing. That's what we're talking about. If you're keeping, bedders or like fancy goldfish or stuff like that, maybe this isn't. It probably does apply, but not to the same extent as what we're going to be talking about. I think flow's really important for a few reasons. The main thing is, if you think about your aquarium, right, as like basically a river, having the water flowing around means that when the fish go to the toilet or miss a piece of food or something, having heaps of flow means that that stuff is going to keep floating around, generally in a circular pattern like that, but depends on your aquarium. But having it flow around in this pattern means that it's not going to settle, like it's not going to settle on the bottom or in the rocks or whatever. It's just going to keep suspended in the water column. And then what that means in turn is it gives the actual filter, be it a canister filter or a hang on back or whatever, it gives that more of a chance to catch it, and then once it catches it, obviously it gets sucked up by the mechanical filtration, and it's kind of up to you then to clean that out when you're cleaning it out. But I think flow is a really useful tool for ensuring that your aquarium is mechanically clean. When I'm talking about extra filtration, it's not so much going to mean about doing something along the lines of like the biological filtration or like doing any chemical things with that. All I mean is it's catching dead leaves, fish food, bits of poo, all this kind of thing, and keeping it aesthetically looking nicer. So the question I often get asked, actually mostly for this tank, but in general, is like, oh, how often do you gravel vac that tank? And the answer for this tank here is, I wouldn't have gravel vacked it since I set it up, which is like probably like 2 years or something. I just have this here, which is a wave maker. This one is a Fluval CP1, I believe it is, which is just like a pump. So it shoots the water across, and then on the other side I got the outlet for the sump that shoots the water sideways, and then what that does is it just makes the water have strong flow in it. These African cichlids in particular, they are happy as. I'll always see them like hanging out on the flow and stuff, but there is spaces for them to go if they don't want to, but they never really use them. There used to be way more, but I took them out because it wasn't getting used. But essentially the flow is the most important thing, because it just mechanically keeps everything way cleaner. It obviously does mean that I do have to clean out the mechanical filtration more often. Like in this tank there's a sump that has like all the filter wool in that, and then I need to clean that out more often because it's catching more. But it's catching more, so it's like, win-win situation. I do have to do more work to keep it clean, but that's because it's actually doing its job better, so we like that. And I think this principle applies for a lot of tanks. Like, there is a lot of fear around about doing too much flow in a tank. Things like, you don't want a lot, but even like an angelfish or something is going to be happy as Larry if you have a bit of a gentle flow going on. Things like Oscars love it, like most monster fish will just love it and like actively try to play in it. Things like flower horns, of course. If you're keeping like a tiger barb tank, like a rainbow fish tank, some are like the smaller, more active tetras, like your silver tips, for example. They're all just going to love having extra flow. It's going to keep the tank clearer. It's going to keep sediment from sitting, and it's going to keep stuff moving around more, basically. So I think it's a really underutilized resource. And the question I get asked a lot is, okay, then how do I replicate this in my aquarium? And there's heap. I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds of options, but the options I always mention is like, you can do a wave maker. It's simple, it's easy, it looks nice, but that'll kind of generate some more flow. You can use your filter outlet depending on what kind of filter you got. If you got a canister or something, you can put take off the spray bar and just let it pour out. Or an internal filter, you can put an extra internal filter and just like use that. Basically, you can use whatever, but there's plenty of options that will sort of maximize the flow in the aquarium. What I would say is you want to build it up rather than tone it down, if that makes sense. So you want to sort of start small and build it up. You don't want to put a massive wave maker in a little tank and then be like, oh, I'm stuck. But you might like get a little internal filter and then it's like, oh, okay, we might need something a little bit more, and then you can build it up until you find that sort of middle ground where everything's going to be calm, everything's going to be stable, but you're still going to have that flow going around. I think it's a really useful resource for particularly display aquariums. Obviously, if you're breeding and stuff, it doesn't matter as much, but we put a lot of wave makers in. We put wave makers in a lot of our clients' aquariums, just because it really does make quite a good difference, and it does make sure that the tank is a lot more mechanically clean. So yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about, and I'd really encourage you guys to give it a go. You can use whatever, even like a simple, an air stone going quite hard is going to help. Just keep that stuff suspended. It will probably make the tank a little bit dirtier for like a couple days as everything gets, on top of it. But once it's on top of it, it'll like catch them as they go, if that makes sense. So then you won't have like, it's not like you have a bunch of poo floating around. It's like it'll float around for 2 minutes and then get caught. But just getting on top of it does take some time. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about. And I think it's a really important resource that I would really encourage a lot more people to make use of or try and play around with a little bit. Obviously, it's better for like heat distribution, filtration, and all this. But just like keeping your tank clean, it will make a big difference. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. That's all I had for today. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'd really appreciate the support. I'm really happy with how everything's been going, but I mean, if you're watching, your like and subscribe would mean a lot to me. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love you all, and I will talk to you tomorrow.